within this past week, rapper or rap activist Killer Mike announced
Raptivist, yeah.
Raptivist Killer Mike announced that he partnered up with the guy who started Bounce TV, Ryan. Oh, I got to get his last name. But Ryan Cooper, I believe is his last name, partnered up with him. And also they brought on a team in order to create the first digital bank that caters to Black and Latinx folk.
Okay.
Within an hour of it launching, they said that he reported that it was tens of thousands of people that signed up, and I actually signed up, and I was like number 79,000, and that was
Yikes.
yesterday. It was like 79,000. It's
Mm-hmm.
so right now the process is that you get an email sent to you. The bank officially opens where you can make deposits. It will start in January.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say? It's called Greenwood, and it
Mm-hmm.
is from the district that was bombed in in Tulsa, Oklahoma, better known as Black Wall Street, which was really just one of several Black Wall Streets that actually existed in the United States, but it's
Right.
called Greenwood.
Okay. Yeah, I think, well, I bank with a Black-owned bank now myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what he's doing is admirable. If you're trying to get some type of economic stability for Black people in particular, you have to, if you're going to stay in the United States and you have to trade money. I mean, as long as they have the infrastructure in place, I think that would be a positive thing. I think the only problem that I've seen, I've been a member of a couple of Black-owned banks, and I think two of them went out of business while I was a customer. You know what I mean? And so you have issues like that. Right? Then you have like when Russell Simmons came out with the Rush card years ago, and it was that same type of premise, with the prepaid debit card, and we saw how that turned out. So I think that I don't want to sound negative, but so let me just say this. From an economic perspective, they're definitely needed and they're definitely necessary. I don't know how they would work in the benefit of Black people if they're still run primarily by white folks, or if those are the ones infusing the bulk of the money, and otherwise you just have a white bank with a Black face.
Right.
And so I think that's where we really have to look into the leadership. We have to look at how the money is insured.
Right.
One of the things that was interesting when I opened my bank account with the Black-owned bank, one thing they said is that if there's they were like, "Do you want a debit card?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I want it." I don't write checks, and they were like, "Well, just be clear. I had to sign a waiver that said if my card is stolen or anything like that, they are not going to cover it."
Wow.
And that's the first time that I've ever had that. From a bank that said, if your card is stolen, even, they were just like, you kind of on your own in that regard. So those kind of things, it makes it hard. It makes it harder for us because I could go to Bank of America, Capital One, Chase, or what have you, and have my money insured and protected, as much as you can, I guess, in a system like this. But then I go to us, and it's like, well, we'll hold your money for you, but we don't have anything else in the place that's going to secure it for you.
So on that, when I started Arc Republic, it was around the time that Killer Mike has been talking about Black economics and empowerment for a very long time. So this isn't anything new. He's not, just coming in and trying to ride the George Floyd wave. Right. He's been very much in the front. What I appreciate, so like being political or engaging even in these public dialogues and discussions, who I am right now in 2020 is not who I was in 2017. So
Right.
you've got to have, I think, a certain level of, you have to be a certain way to be comfortable with the fact that you might say something now that you may not agree with 3 years later, or you might grow tremendously. I appreciate that about Killer Mike. And you know why I like you, Killer Mike? Because my father's nickname was Killer Shipley. So you are. But he put out this call that's, that call for people to go to Black banks. And it actually, tens of thousands of people went to Black banks, and it infused, in particular, one United Bank in Atlanta. I went to the Black bank in Newark to set up Arc Republic. And let me say the benefit of it is that the person who signed me up for my account was very patient, explained things to me, advocated, that I get kind of like the best out of the account that I set up. And then within, I would say maybe a year, I applied for a loan. I didn't get the loan, but what I did get was a credit card, which is extremely hard to get. The woman, I remember her name, Somali, right? Apparently, and I was able, and the people are more accessible because it's a small kind of community-oriented enterprise. But a person in the bank actually went to Arc Republic's site. This is her telling me this. She went to the site. She saw that not only was Arc Republic legitimate, thank goodness, but it actually ran good stories about Black people, about Latinx people, the world affairs, things that she didn't see in the other local mainstream press. And she actually advocated for me in a meeting, which is how I got Arc Republic's credit card, only type of line of credit that I've had thus far, right? So that is the wonderful thing. All the other stuff, horrible customer service, hours, opening up at 9, closing at 12, closing at 3. Like you said, not having a fully like customer service where you can call and you lose your card, like all of these things, which actually damaged me as a client because I couldn't get to my money all the time. And then exorbitant monthly fees. So what Killer Mike was saying is that when he put out the call, he said this, on the Breakfast Club, he said that when he put out the call, there were some things in him banking and then also just talking to people who realized the challenges of that Black banks have because they simply don't have the resources that larger commercial banks have. So this Greenwood is supposed to be the answer to that. And there is a lot of small, so fintech, financial technology is the new type of kind of like, what do you call this? Cash cow in the industry. So financial tech and educational tech. So ed tech and fine tech are the two leading things. And so there's a lot of these little companies that are popping up that are offering these online only banking services. So it's not a new thing that Killer Mike is doing, but what he promises, so he says, is that they're going to earmark monies for Black and Latinx businesses that would not get money or would not get loans or the fiscal support that they would get at a commercial bank. My question to you, Rolanda, is that if you were sitting in the board meeting, what are some things, because I believe that Killer Mike is going to see this, and Ryan Cooper, I hope I'm saying this yet, Ryan Cooper, what are some things that you think we need, and what does a good digital bank look like that services Black and Latinx folk?
I think that, again, you start with being able to federally insure the funds. I think that, I think having access to and they don't have to be extensive loans, but like micro loans, and things like that, that we may need, everybody doesn't need, $1 million in business funds. Sometimes you just need 5,000, but I feel like the for Black banks in particular, it's almost harder to qualify through the Black banks. And I think it does have something to do with the money not being insured. I would say that access is the most important. So we understand that, mostly poor people, or, let's be honest, are going to look at this as an option. People who have their bank accounts closed, people who are in check systems, so they can't get a bank account. What do you have for them? You know what I mean? And especially during a pandemic. A lot of people are out of work. So how much would it be to open this account? How much would you have to keep it open? I would imagine that if you're a startup bank, you can't, waive fees like, one of the larger banks could, but they have to be manageable for the people who you say it's for. You see what I'm saying? So it's just, a bank is a bank. It's, you hold your money and things like that. So we also, because what I'm inclined to do is look at my social service side and be like, oh, they need all this help, but it's still a business. Right. You know what I mean? So, and let's not trip. People will overdraw their account. People will do all kinds of shit, and mess up the money too. So, I mean, I think, for what they have in place, I think they're definitely on the right track. I think it's necessary for a large part of the population, but I think they have to have products and incentives that, besides being Black, that would draw people in. You need to not just the people who don't have access to bank accounts, but you actually want those people, those Black people that have a lot of money. You want Jay-Z and Beyonce to, put their money in your bank. So the client relations are going to matter as well, because if you have, 100,000 people, and the average that they have what is the average for Black people? Like $300 in their bank account, on average. So you have 100,000 people, they have $300 in their bank account, they can't give out loans. You see what I'm saying? There's not enough money. So there has to be money. So they're going to have to cater to those people also who have money. So these are just some of the things that I can think of offhand. I'm not an economist by any means.
Right. Yeah. I'm totally. But I think that, and another thing he did say, thinking of economists, is that they actually hired or recruited some Black people who have years in the game in the banking industry who were not getting promoted, at these banks because of their institutionalized racism. So there are people, insiders, that do have, workable knowledge in terms of how the banks operate. I would say that one of the things that I think, because it's digital, right. So what we do know is that most of the wealth of Black folk in the United States is in baby boomers. So I think part of the job, or part of the work that Killer Mike might have to do is that how do you get more so of those people invested in that as well? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're going to want a place to go to.
Exactly.
They're not going to want to do it exclusively online.
So this is what I think. I think that even though there isn't a brick and mortar, I think that he should use the whole concept of a tour and do a tour throughout the United States, but set up these pop-up banks where people could come and sign up and perhaps get, in the process, a class, a credit fixing, credit repair, understanding credit, mortgage, and not some surface level class that you get, but like a real class that really gets into the nuts and bolts of ownership and things like that, investments. So I think that will be, and you partner with local entities or whatever in order to hold these pop-up banking sessions. Another thing I was thinking about, they've got to have the best customer service you ever want to know, right? Please. And there are so many people that probably you could even put, I mean, there will, like, I think there will be people that they can even pick that are actually maybe even, what do you call this? What do they call this? When you own and you work for it, what is it called? Worker
A
owned?
co-op?
Yeah, like a co-op. So even like people, even pulling from people that actually have accounts, you got to have a customer service. And I mean, not a customer service. Well, on one hand, yes, one that is, um, that is hospitable and speaks to you and things like that. But whatever that concierge type of customer service thing you need to add to that, that's important. There also
Okay.
needs to be a tech infrastructure, advertisement and marketing that is all located in the United States and shows and put out a report showing how many people there are Black, Latinx, and service are actually, this goes back to what you were talking about, or reflective of those who you're trying to service. I think there needs to be money earmarked for special interest groups that we need in order to kind of help create this institution or maintain Black folk, like Black farmers. There should be money earmarked for
Mhm.
Black farmers, cannabis growers, or the people in the cannabis industry,
Mhm.
teachers, um, you know, uh, you know, college students, and even those in fast food working. Like there should be some type of incentive to help, I think, activate these people and their money.
Right.
I agree. There needs to be a tier system of loans that
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
implemented. And then finally, I think that some of the identity needs to be kind of like a credit union. So let's just say if
Right.
I wanted
Right.
to
Right.
join, yeah, so let's just say I wanted to join, Rolanda and Kaia's credit union. But in order for me to join, I had to have a membership I had to live in New Orleans. Well, if you
Okay.
don't live in New Orleans, this is how a lot of like credit unions operate. So a lot of these credit unions, they say, well, if you don't live in New Orleans, you need to join, the Spencer and Shivers nonprofit, or donate $7 to the Spencer and Shivers nonprofit, and then that money will go to the nonprofit. Well,
Mhm.
this Greenwood Trust can have like a rolling thing where they could have like, well, you could join and you could deposit, but perhaps maybe there's this VIP where if you donate $7 to a nonprofit organization, you'll blah, 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 blah. But that money every month will be divvied up or given to actual groups that are doing work, right?
Yeah, I think that would be, and especially in terms of when we're talking about as a community cooperative economics, because
Yes.
that would really just go back. And I don't know if any Black banks are seriously doing cooperative economics, in the way that we need.
The
You
way that
have
we
to
need,
already
yes.
have the money
Right.
to come in and get more money. So it kind of has to be the other way around. So I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah. So those are some things I was just kind of thinking about. So I'm
Hmm.
really interested, but you raised some really good concerns about it, because a lot of these, people who are considered celebrities are now being called out for
Hmm.
scams, like Killer Mike's, homie Ti, that he shouts out and works with, had to pay when he was investigated by the SEC for the Bitcoin, or the not the Bitcoin, but it was the cryptocurrency. He was
Right.
marketing a cryptocurrency as him owning it, and he ended up paying a fine. So those are the things, right, that
Right.
that that, that we need to work on.
And I think that we always get into a position where I think Black people have to remember that you can't really do black business like white folks.
Oh,
We can't. And that's the truth. I mean, the loopholes that are for them are for them. Those are the loopholes that hang us. You know what I
mhm,
mean? So it's Ti. I don't think was doing anything other than doing business.
mhm,
But
mhm,
the way he did it, here we are.
mhm,
He
mhm.
has a fine, and I think that especially now, Black folks are looking at the way that we use our power, we use our politics, especially with our celebrities, or I don't want to call them community leaders, because I'm not going to call them community leaders, let me just say that.
Right.
But, those people who are in the forefront and in the spotlight, how they use their platform. So if you are misrepresenting yourself in any kind of way, especially in the way culture is today, you're going to get called out.
Right.
Always. But we have to remember that we can't do business like them. I think Chris Rock said, like, if you're, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but whatever work you got to do, it got to be good shit. You know what I'm saying? You can't profit. What he said is you can't profit off pain. We cannot. You see what I'm saying? That's why we have to have the nonprofit organizations and fight each other for grants and do all of this. But that's going off on another time. I'm gonna start talking about
No. I mean, it's a really good. I mean, it's some really good points. I'm really kind of interested to see what T.I.
Right.
And Leonard,
Charlemagne
is going to do with these opportunity zone that they said that they started with Nipsey Hussle. And Nipsey Hussle's one of the main partner, David Gross, in Los Angeles, right? So I think one of the I would say the challenges, or one of the challenges, and this goes with all type of people, is that we assume that because you see people's faces every day in front of a camera or behind a mic, people assume that they're smarter than most people really are, that they have access and resources that they really have. And what they promote is actually 100% theirs, right? This is they're in entertainment. A lot of this is smoking mirrors anyway.
Right.
So,
since filming this weekly check-in with Rolanda Spencer, there are a couple of pieces of information that emerged. One, I have to make a correction. It is not Ryan Cooper who is the TV executive. It is actually Ryan Glover, who is the Bounce TV executive, who co-founded Greenwood along with Ambassador Andrew Young and Andrew Young's son, Bo Young. As well, since our talk, there have been a recorded 100,000 people who have enrolled to start or set up their bank accounts in January 2021. We also discovered that Greenwood is not FDIC insured. However, it works with a network of banks who are FDI insured. Okay, this is an excerpt of next week's weekly check-in. You could tune in to watch the full podcast where we talk about Ice Cube, Amy Coney Barrett, Rihanna Fenty line, as well as some other really important issues we think that you should know about and that we're covering here on Arc Republic.